All right, today we're going to read Jasmine Toguchi, and the next chapter is chapter 11, My Turn. So I have my little thinking paper here, and I have an extra one because mine's getting kind of filled up, so if I need some more space, I have a little extra. So chapter 11, My Turn. Suddenly, the worry flower in my tummy grew roots all the way down to my legs, through my feet, and into the ground. Dad nudged me, but I couldn't move. "Are you okay?" he asked me. I nodded, though my feet stayed still. "Do you want to wait till next year?" I shook my head. Eddie's smile grew and grew. It wasn't a happy smile or a nice smile. It was a smile that said he was glad I was frozen. I'm going to pause there for a minute and come to our thinking about mean cousin Eddie. So we've been collecting some evidence that the author has given us to show us that he's mean cousin Eddie, right? So so far at the beginning of the book, we were wondering, was all the evidence going to show that cousin Eddie was mean, or was there going to be some evidence that an event that proved to us that he wasn't mean? And for me, I'm going to add this to evidence that he is mean. So I'm just going to write Eddie smiling when Jasmine felt frozen. Pounding mochi. Right? And it wasn't a nice smile or a mean smile. It was an evil smile. So I'm going to write that down there too so I remember. Okay. I didn't want to look like a failure. I ripped my feet from the ground. I moved slowly toward the usu. I took one step after another until I was standing right in front of the bowl. It looked like a giant volcano. It was a lot bigger than I remembered from last night. The rice Eddie had been pounding still sat in the center of the stone bowl. Not yet mochi, but not steamed rice anymore either. "Are you ready, Jasmine?" Uncle Jimmy asked. "You have to pound the rice while it's hot." This picture is telling me that maybe she's not feeling so ready. It felt like a huge piece of mochi was stuck in my throat. I swallowed twice before wrapping my hands around the hammer. I glanced over at Mom. Everyone under the canopy stopped working to watch me. Gulp. The handle felt slippery. It was hard to get a grip on it. "Hurry up," Eddie huffed at me. He dipped his hands into the water, flipped the mochi, and stepped back. I took a deep breath and gathered all my strength to lift the hammer over my shoulder. I guess I was stronger than I thought because when I swung it back, it kept going. And so did I. I fell onto the grass. Mean cousin Eddie laughed. My nose tickled and I blinked quickly. "Ha! That was hilarious!" Eddie shouted, slapping his knees. "Eddie!" Uncle Jimmy's voice was sharp. It cut Eddie's laughter off. I stood and picked up the hammer again. I tried to lift it, but my arms shook, making the hammer wobble. Eddie snickered, but he kept it low so Uncle Jimmy wouldn't hear. Dad came up to me. "Do you need help?" I shook my head. Suddenly, Sophie was by my side. I was afraid she would laugh at me too. But she wasn't laughing. She was glaring at Eddie. "You can do it, Jasmine," she said. "Remember when you carried Dad's birthday cake all by yourself?" I was so surprised I almost fell over a second time. Her words hugged me. If Sophie believed me, then I knew I could do it. I'm going to pause right here. And I'm actually going to grab my other sheet of paper because I want to start tracking something new. I want to start tracking key events that change characters. Because I'm noticing right now that Debbie Michiko Florence, the author, threw in this big event here with Sophie and Jasmine. Sophie and Jasmine. Right? So before, it was really Sophie not supporting Jasmine all too much. And they talked about how they had this kind of sister rivalry. And I know a lot of us were connecting about how we have siblings that we mess around with and play tricks on. But this is the first time where Sophie really supports Jasmine. And when Jasmine is feeling really, really down, right? Because she can't lift the hammer, supports Jasmine when she is feeling down and having trouble with the hammer. And Sophie really supports Jasmine and stands up to mean cousin Eddie. And then I'm also going to put over here, there was this quote that I really, really liked. And I'm going to put it down here because it resonated with me as a reader. But she said, let's see, let me go back. Her words hugged me. If Sophie believed in me, then I knew I could do it. And I just want to write down that quote for now. And then I'm going to come back to it at the end because I want to keep reading. Her words hugged me. If Sophie believed in me, then I knew I could do it. That quote really, really stuck out to me. And so for me as a reader, I might even just write page 84 so that I can come back to it if I want to. But for now, I'm just going to let that thought live right there and come back to it. I grabbed the hammer tight and lifted it up, but not too high. I let it fall forward. Thwick! It only made a tiny sound, but I hit the rice. Everyone except for Eddie clapped and cheered. I grinned. Eddie silently dipped his hands into the water bowl, then flipped the mochi. I tried but could not lift the hammer again. It felt as heavy as 1,000 stones. Dad came up behind me and wrapped his hands around mine. His hands were warm against my cold skin. I breathed in the peppermint smell of his favorite gum. You can do it, Dad whispered as, together, we lifted and dropped the hammer. Thwack! Eddie flipped the mochi. Dad and I hit the mochi again. Thwack! I wasn't pounding the mochi by myself. Thwack! I was a weakling. Dad took the hammer from me. Fantastic, Jasmine! Not fantastic. I only hit the mochi once by myself, and it was hardly a real hit. Dad had to help me. I didn't pound mochi at all. I failed. I failed in front of everyone. I ran out to the backyard. All right. So I'm going to come back and reflect on this for a moment because for me, this was the biggest takeaway while I was reading. You might have had a bigger takeaway or something different. And that's the power of, sharing your thinking with different readers because different readers focus on different elements of the story. So I'm really going to focus on this event that I thought was kind of, I'll call it like a game changer for Sophie and Jasmine. And I'm just going to take a second to make a few connections with it. Because readers make connections to characters while they're reading. So I'm actually going to make two little lists. I'm going to have a connection to this quote, and then I'm also going to have disconnections to this quote. And you guys might have the same where you have both connections and disconnections, or your brain might just lead you to one or the other. That's really different based on all of our different experiences. So for me, I'm going to read this quote again. It says, her words hugged me. If Sophie believed in me, then I knew I could do it. So, one connection that I have to this right now, I think about coaching cross country, because a lot of times, based on the workouts, I know my girls are ready to run a fast time, but maybe they don't believe in it yet. And so a lot of coaching is spending time just using our words to build up our runners. Right? And telling them, we believe in you, you've done this work, here's the evidence that you're ready, you got this, right? And then sometimes there's some disconnections too. And I can think about when I was a college runner, I didn't always think that my coach believed in me. And that for me was really, really, really hard because it was hard for me to have motivation then. So this kind of led to no motivation, which is hard if you don't have motivation. And then there's a few moments I can think of right now where I feel like people's words didn't bring me up but tore me down instead. So I'm wondering if you guys have any connections or what you guys were thinking about. And I'm excited to see what you guys think about this chapter. Okay. Have a good day and we'll talk soon.